What is going on, everybody? It is Coach Tyler and Matt, and we are the FF Mediators. And today we're going to walk through our top 12 Dynasty wide receivers. So let's just jump straight into our tier list. Coach is going to kick us off first. Who we got?
I'll get us going with our wide receiver one. Now, there was a lot of debate here between two guys. We went back and forth a lot, but the consensus ended up being we went with Justin Jefferson as our wide receiver one. The dude's just a daggum football player. Like, he's really dang good. He had 103 catches. To me, he had 154 targets is what I'm seeing. I mean, the dude is really, really good. He's probably the best football player on the planet most days. Didn't quite get as many targets as Jamar Chase, but still we feel over the long haul that Justin Jefferson is going to be the best wide receiver over the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Jefferson is just an amazing player. We've all said that all season long. Wide receiver 1 3 years ago, 4 the year before that, 2 this season. The guy is just an incredible player, so I'm happy to have him. We're splitting hairs here at the start, but let's just jump into our second pick, and that's going to be Jamar Chase, the guy who had 85 more fantasy points than Justin Jefferson this season. An absolute unbelievable year. Crazy target numbers, 175. The Triple Crown winner for the league this year. He's an absolute superstar paired with Joe Burrow, one of the best true pocket passers in the league. So I'm happy to have Jamar Chase on my team. The guy's an absolute beast. We will say that these rankings do not include rookies yet. So just know that they're subject to change. But Tyler, what are your thoughts on Jamar Chase?
Yeah, I mean, we would be remiss without saying, it's basically splitting hairs, like Coach said earlier. He's a phenomenal player. He actually kind of benefited a little bit from T. Higgins being out, but oddly enough, his production was better when T. Higgins played. So we're kind of hoping for T. Higgins to be back on the Bengals this coming year. That way he can continue that production. Like you said, 85 points over Justin Jefferson is an absurd gap. So I actually think our next guy is going to rise into this tier pretty quickly, and people may be kind of hesitant originally, but it's Malik Neighbors. He's 21 years old. He plays for the Giants, obviously. He ended up the year with 170 targets as a rookie. That is insane. And we're talking about Daniel Jones targets. We're talking about Drew Lock targets, Tommy DeVito. Like, they're everywhere. And the dude was still amazing. He finished as the wide receiver 6 in PPR formats. I mean, he had 1,200 yards as a rookie. That is absurd. A lot of people may be like, why is he in this tier already? You've got Puka and Amon-Ra and all those guys. But that age and the superstar ability that he's already showcased, I think you have to kind of put him up here with these guys.
Yeah, I think Tyler made a great point there about Malik Neighbors when it comes to the quarterbacks that we're throwing to him. I mean, you give Malik Neighbors an elite quarterback, and his numbers are just going to get even better. It's impressive. He's similar to Justin Jefferson. Like, for Justin Jefferson, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. It's not going to matter who Malik Neighbors has as his quarterback. The dude is just that good. That brings us to wide receiver 4, which is Puka Nacua. He's probably my favorite football player in the NFL, just to be honest, because he's so tough. I mean, he's probably one of the toughest players in the league. He spent a lot of the season hurt, which kind of brought his numbers down a little bit. But when he played, he averaged 19 points a game in PPR. They feed him the ball. They'll hand him jet sweeps. He can get a little bit of everything. Like, Puka Nacua is just a guy that you want to have on your team, because when he is on the field, he produces every time.
Yeah, there's no real insight for Puka. Like you said, he's just so tough. They find ways to get him involved, whether it's screens, end rounds, or down the field. He just does everything. He's absolutely what you would want in being your wide receiver 1 for a dynasty team. So he's a buy for me in this offseason. If I can go find someone who's a little bit down on him, capitalize off the injury, capitalize off the low numbers, whatever it is, go and get him if you can. Which we're going to bring in our next pick here with our 5th option is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Another solid year for him. Finished as wide receiver 3 for the 2nd year in a row. 141 targets with 115 receptions, over 1,200 yards through the air. and added 12 touchdowns, double-digit touchdowns the last 2 seasons. Amon-Ra is just as consistent as they come. A lot like Puka, he finds a way to get it done, stays involved. This Lions team is so good right now, and that projects to go forward too. So I'd absolutely have Amon-Ra on my team going forward.
Yeah, I think that consistency that you're talking about, man, I think that's actually, kind of what I may end up putting Amon-Ra over Puka just because of Stafford's age. We don't know his retirement status. I do currently have them listed as we do now, but that could be kind of like a tiebreaker for you if you really want the consistent option. They've got Jared Goff. They just signed him to his extension, so he's going to be there for a while. We don't really know the Stafford status, but then you get also Cooper Kupp as well. We don't know his status either. So maybe Puka takes a step forward in the target volume there. Up next for me is CeeDee Lamb, another guy that is kind of quarterback proof at this point. He's going to get his targets. He's the superstar of the team. He ended up in the PPR ranks as wide receiver 8 this year, and that's without playing the last 2 games. It was kind of weird year for CeeDee there with Dak getting hurt early. He was on a good pace, but having Cooper Rush that second half of the year, he still got his targets, just the volatility wasn't really there. They didn't have the ability to move the offense as much. So I think that kind of hurt him this year a little bit. I still think his dynasty outlook is great. They're going to keep Dak there, obviously. And unless something drastic changes with the offense, they draft a high capital running back, something like that they feel like they need to force feed that player, I don't really see it changing much. So give me the number one option in a high-flying Cowboys offense, typically with Dak at the helm. And I think he kind of rounds out this tier perfectly.
Yeah, see, I tend to think with CeeDee, he's a guy that is benefiting somewhat by being the only real option in Dallas. So there is that. But at the same time, CeeDee's a good football player. I think the Dynasty world's a little down on CeeDee. So now might be a good opportunity for you to go out and buy a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who I see having a tremendous season next year. So that's something I would keep in mind. That moves me to our wide receiver 7 in our next tier here, which is Brian Thomas Jr. BTJ really exploded on the scene this year. He is a super athlete. You get him the ball, he makes plays. He really stood out among rookie wide receivers to me. Other than Malik Neighbors, there was Brian Thomas Jr. And a lot of people didn't see that coming at the beginning of the year. But the guy can really play. Jacksonville offense was all over the place, but he was the one steady constant for them all year long. And I only see that in improving going into next year and the year following. He's proved it with Trevor Lawrence that he has a good relationship already. And I see that expanding over the next couple of years.
Yeah, if he can get a little bit more comfortable with Trevor Lawrence and he can stay healthy, then this offense should improve. I mean, they were one of the worst teams in the league. Their quarterback room was in complete chaos most of the season, and Brian Thomas Jr. still performed. He finishes the wide receiver 4 on the season. So I'd absolutely expect that to keep going and improve. And he just turned 22 years old just now. So a lot to look forward to. But let's jump to our next pick, which might be one that sparks a little bit of discussion here with Nico Collins. Finished as 22 on the season, had just 68 catches for 1,000 yards, but he did miss about a third of the season with injury. I think the story for Nico is when he plays well, averaging over 15 points a game in most formats. He's a plug-and-play guy for you in your wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 spot. It's just going to depend on, can he stay healthy and can C.J. Stroud get back to what he was? I think us as a group believe that Nico is good, and we believe that Stroud can bounce back. So I'm happy to plug in Nico Collins here at the 8 spot for our wide receiver list.
Yeah. I think he's, kind of appropriately placed here. Like we said, C.J. Stroud, he had a tremendous rookie season. Typically when we see that, they kind of take that step back once NFL defenses get a little bit of film on them, kind of make it a little bit more challenging on them their second year. I think that's really what we're seeing with Stroud here. And like we said, Nico is the number one target on that offense. When he is on the field, he is producing. He's the superstar of this offense. Now we'll have to see, do they draft a high-profile wide receiver because of Tank Dell's injury and Stephon Diggs being out? We'll have to see how those things kind of shake out. But I still think Nico will be the one regardless. That being said, my next guy up is Garrett Wilson from the New York Jets. Now, the Jets were a dumpster fire all year, right? There's no surprise in that statement. Aaron Rodgers did not look the way we expected him to. They ended up trading for Devontae Adams. And a lot of people probably thought, oh, man, this is really going to kill Garrett Wilson's dynasty stock. I personally think it helped. It took a lot of the pressure off of Garrett Wilson and having to be that number one guy, and it took coverage away from him. It's similar to the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins kind of stack there. So I actually think it really helped Garrett Wilson. He still had 154 targets on the season with Devontae Adams being there half of the season and with a hobbled Aaron Rodgers. Whether Aaron Rodgers is back in town and those targets stay the same, whether they find another quarterback, he is the future of this offense for sure. Him and Breece Hall, they will build around those guys. They're young enough that it doesn't matter. Give me Garrett Wilson. And, at this point in this tier, you could toss it up any way you go.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson has been a target monster. I mean, he gets 1 million targets. I mean, Garrett's a great athlete. He has fantastic hands. I only see his role getting stronger. I think next year they'll make a move at quarterback. There's been a lot of trade issues. Garrett Wilson saying he doesn't want to be back if Aaron Rodgers is there. I personally think that they're going to keep Garrett Wilson and build around him and Breece Hall, like Tyler said. So I think the stock is really high for Garrett Wilson moving forward. That brings me to our number 10 wide receiver, which is Drake London. Drake London had the year this year that all the Drake London drafters really thought he could be. I mean, he's came into his own, and a guy caught 100 passes. He's under 25 years old, caught 100 passes. They changed quarterbacks mid-year, went with Michael Penix. His role got even bigger. He scored 40 fantasy points the last game of the year against the Panthers. I mean, Drake London is ascending in a hurry. I would try to buy Drake London now if I were you. The price is going to be higher than it's ever been, though, right now for Drake London, I feel like. So that's something to keep in mind. But Drake London's a guy that seems to be climbing the ladder of wide receivers every day.
Yeah, we finally saw Drake London kind of hit that spot where he got into the end zone. I mean, only 2 touchdowns last year for his rookie year. This year he had 9. He had 2 in Week 18 against Carolina and 1 in Week 15 against Vegas. So I expect him to continue to progress with Michael Penix. This looks like a good duo to grow together. 158 targets on the year. You can't really get better than that. 100 receptions, almost 1,300 yards. He's absolutely a guy you can plug and play. And he's only 23 years old. So he's a premium dynasty asset. But let's jump into our wide receiver 11, which is going to be Ladd McConkey. The wide receiver from Georgia playing for the Los Angeles Chargers. Had a surprising year for most people. He finished up at wide receiver 12 on the season, had 112 targets with 82 receptions, a little over 1,100 yards and 7 touchdowns. He looks to be that steady force for this Chargers offense. We'll see what they add this offseason. A lot of people are linking tight ends, maybe another wide receiver. I don't think it matters. Ladd McConkey is an elite separator. He creates space. He's a great route runner with solid hands. Him and Justin Herbert should be best friends for years to come.
Yeah, I kind of agree there, Matt. Me and you have a team that we kind of co-manage. We ended up actually stacking Brian Thomas Jr. We had him that we drafted, and we ended up trading for Ladd McConkey. And, that changed the outlook of our team. We got 2 stud young wide receivers that both we have in our top 12 here. He's had a great year. I don't think very many people were high on QJ coming in. So I feel like he kind of filled that Keenan Allen role in the Chargers offense. He's just always getting open, always getting those targets. And he's got good hands. So he has done really well. He's had a great season. Personally, for me, I might even bump him above Drake London. Now, I know you guys, have, pretty convicted feelings on Drake London. I'm not saying Drake London is a bad receiver at all. Don't take that wrong. But I like the youth. I also like Justin Herbert a lot. And we're not 100% sure, how Penix is going to work out, although he's looked pretty decent so far. Give me that stability there and him being the wide receiver one for the Chargers organization and Jim Harbaugh as we go into the playoffs. And I think last but not least, a guy everybody was super high on to start the year, did not have the season that we all projected him to, but I think that gets remedied next year, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr. Have him as our wide receiver 12 here. Yes, he's in a tier with Ladd down here. He didn't have the year we thought he would. Kyler didn't look great, didn't seem to have that connection. It was kind of off all year. But there were comments that Kyler made saying they were going to work on that connection all offseason to get it to where it needed to be. And I truly think that'll be the game plan there. We saw Drake London kind of have the same thing. I felt like Drake London, his first year or so on the scene, he didn't really impress a whole lot, but he's gotten better as time went on. I think Marv takes the same transition here. On top of that, I mean, we've got some other guys down below here. I think another name to look at as like a career arc is JSN. JSN, he didn't really have a great rookie year, but look at him this year with DK kind of being in and out. He stepped up, all those things. So there are career arcs for him to follow. I don't think you should write Marv off yet. He is talented. He is the prospect that we saw him come out as from Ohio State. I just don't think you should give up on him just yet.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the pedigree of Marvin Harrison Jr. He certainly has that touted name, but a lot to still develop on the field, and certainly he has the traits to get it done. So we'll just have to see. But like you said, there's names we left off: JSN, Rashee Rice, AJ Brown. Let us know below who's in your top 12 Dynasty wide receiver rankings. Be sure to like the video, give us a subscription on YouTube, and we will catch you guys next time.